right, welcome to Life Extension Live. I'm Dr. Mike, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Crystal Gossert. Great to see you. Today's show, I love it. It's something you and I have talked about a lot, and I love the title of it. What is your sugar age? Ooh,
Mm.
yeah. It's funny. I'm gonna a quick little story, Doctor Crystal. In my local church, we do a big brunch every third Sunday of the month, and 3 or 4 months ago, and of course, in these brunches, there's a bunch of sugar.
Of
I
course,
mean,
there.
cake, cookie. I mean, that's it's mostly dessert, to be honest with you. And so, anyways, I'm walking like towards the food, and one of our younger members, young man, maybe like 12 years old, had a plate full of nothing but cookies. And I said to him, I said, all that sugar is not good for you. And he looked me right in the eyes, and he said, everyone says that. Why? He's like upset because every adult in his life has probably said that to him, right?
Right.
And I think he's
Yes.
asking an innocent, legitimate question. What is it about sugar that's so bad for us? And why are we talking about sugar age, right? What do you
Right.
think?
Yes. I think that it's something that we all wish wasn't bad for us, right? So
It's
because it tastes so good.
so nice and sweet, right?
Yes. and
Yeah.
and so but it does age us, and the question is, how old are you in
Yeah, how
sugar
old are you?
years?
And really, and answering the young man's question is, what is it really doing inside our bodies? That always has us practitioners, parents, whatever concerned. So on today's show, we are going to talk about sugar and glycation. That's the key thing. We're going to talk about 7 signs of glycation, and then, of course, we're going to wrap it up with nutrients that can help slow down this damaging process that sugar can cause. Right now, you got some people there, right?
I do. I just wanted to say hi to Stan. Thanks for joining us, Stan. We love that you're here watching, and hopefully, you'll learn that your sugar age is lower than most.
Let's hope.
Hopefully.
Let's hope, right? We've talked about this before too in other shows. Sugar is everywhere, right? But I
Yes.
think we need to make sure what we mean by sugar. It's not just the candy stuff, right?
Right. You mentioned the cookies, and that's usually what people think about: cookies, chocolate,
Right.
hard candies. You think about even maybe those sweetened cereals. But when we talk about sugar, we're talking about carbohydrates, because sugars are the building blocks for carbohydrates, and that includes the simple carbs, which are
Right.
your simple sugars, right? And the honeys and the syrups. And then we're also talking about the complex carbs. And when we say complex carbs, those are the starchy carbs, the fiber. I'm sorry, the rice, the
The rice,
potatoes,
potatoes,
the
yeah, yeah.
pasta, the bread, those complex carbs, and even carbs that you find in foods that we think are healthy. Fruit and vegetables contain carbohydrates. We know that fruit
They have
contains
sugars,
more
yeah,
sugar because it's
yeah.
sweet, right? But you have your starchy vegetables like the potatoes, like beets. We talk about sugar beets. All of these
Yep.
foods, corn, they
Big
contain
one.
carbohydrates, and some of those can really contribute to that bottom line when we look at sugar and raising blood glucose more than
Good point.
others.
Yeah, very good point. At the end of the day, whether it's the candy, whether it's the white pasta, it's sugar. It becomes sugar in your body. We don't need to go into how all that happens, whatever. Bottom line is, you said it's about sugar. So going to that young man's question, well, who cares? What does it?
Right.
What? Why does all the adults in my life tell me sugar's bad? Like, what does it matter? I have a lot of sugar in my system, and I think giving a good answer for that will be helpful for a lot of people. So the main process that is occurring in your body when you're consuming a lot of sugar. Now, there's obviously the diabetic stuff, right? There's the damage to
Right.
insulin and that. But we're really focusing on an aging process or reaction that sugar goes through in your body, and that's called glycation, right? Sugar binds to proteins and other things in your body, but mainly the proteins. And when
Mm-hmm.
sugar binds to a protein, whether in your muscle cells, endothelial cells that line artery, whatever it is, right? Nerve cells, those proteins become damaged and they cannot function properly. That's glycation. How do you think about that? Was that good?
Yeah, that was great, Dr. Mike. And this process happens more with the more sugar that you have. And it also happens in your bloodstream. A great example of that is hemoglobin,
Yeah, we
glycated
can measure it.
hemoglobin.
Yeah.
We're testing it. You are probably having your hemoglobin, glycated hemoglobin, tested in the form of hemoglobin A1C.
Yeah, yeah. Hemoglobin's a protein. Sugar attacks it. We can measure that, and we can often use that, like in diabetics, as a sign of how much glycation, right,
Right.
is going on in your body. To help people kind of understand a little bit more, I talked about my hand analogy. You remember that? Um, it's really fascinating to me, especially with proteins. Everything in your body, especially proteins, as I said, has a structure to function relationship, right? A
Mm-hmm.
protein has a certain structure that allows it to do a certain function. Very
Right.
important in just overall life. Well, if you think about my hand, let me get it in the right place, has a certain structure, right? I have fingers and I can grab. I got that thumb, and the structure of my hand allows for a function. Where
Mm-hmm.
imagine if I take my hand, let me get it back. Where is it at? There it is, and I smash it with a hammer and I break it. I've lost the structure, right?
Right.
And now I can't pick up things. I can't. I've lost the function of the hand. That's glycation. Glycation is like the hammer smashing a protein, destroying the structure, and ultimately destroying its function. And that leads to a whole host of problems, a whole host of chronic age-related disorders, and aging.
That's right. And an example I like to use is the collagen in your skin. Collagen has a very unique structure. I like to think of it as kind of like the springs in the mattress, and we know it's kind of providing that foundation for your skin. And when you lose the structure of that collagen, now instead of it having that kind of that spring formation, now you have a divot in that spring, and now that's a wrinkle. So when you
Yeah,
look at a wrinkle on your face, that is glycation, a
right.
visual example
Yeah.
of the glycation reaction
We
to the
have we have
collagen.
seven we have seven signs of glycation coming up. But before we
Yeah,
do that, real quick, you touched on this, and there you can see. We'll go over that in a sec. You touched on this briefly, but again, I want to reiterate it. Glycation is a normal process, right? It happens in everyone. It's not about stopping glycation completely. It's simply about controlling it, managing it, slowing it down, whatever other words you want to use. And we do have some nutrients that can play a role. But before we get into that, let's talk about the seven signs and see kind of how you match up. This might play a role in your sugar age. So we're going to look at osteoarthritis, atherosclerosis, cataracts, sleep apnea, wrinkles, muscle function, and kidney function as well. Let's get started right with osteoarthritis. Interesting that again, just like in the face with collagen, your bones have collagen, your bones have these proteins, right, Dr. Crystal? That
that's
hold the structure and keep them flexible. Sugar can
mm-hmm.
damage those.
Right. And so let's just really quick, as we're looking at these different causes, one thing at one point we should bring up, Dr. Mike, is this process of the sugar binding to the protein. Again, more sugar that's available in the body, the more it's going to kind of link up with the different proteins in your body. That process can be stopped or decreased. Once that binding happens, there are nutrients that can kind of release that binding, and then the other process, that binding can happen, and then you start having more of a chain reaction, which creates what we called advanced glycation end
Glycation.
products.
Very good.
And
Yes.
so we
Yes.
should kind of talk about those advanced glycation end products, or those AGEs. It's kind of down that pathway, from that glycation pathway. And those AGEs are really what's responsible for causing cell damage, increasing inflammation in the body. And we can see those AGEs produced in the body and outside of the body. So when we start looking at osteoarthritis, what we're finding is it's those AGEs, or those advanced products of glycation that's made in the body, that is now damaging your cartilage.
Very good. Yeah. So sugar binding to a protein begins that process, right? And then
Right,
once that damaged structure, it can connect with other damaged ones, and
right.
connect with other ones, and it just starts
Mm-hmm.
to spiral. They call that cross linking, right? It just starts to spiral down, and then you end up with this final product called the age, and that's what's really causing a lot of the problems. So osteoarthritis is right at the top of that list. You got bone coming together, you got cartilage surround, a lot of good protein to attack there, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's osteoarthritis. If you're dealing with that, yes, it can happen with age and all that kind of stuff, but think about sugar intake. A big one for sure is atherosclerosis, right? That's plaque forming in the arteries. You have these cells that line the inside. They're called endothelial cells. They make these protein to protein type connections that hold them together. Lots of damage from glycation and ages can occur there.
Absolutely. And when you think about a blood vessel, Dr. Mike, your blood vessels are flexible. What's making
Yeah.
those blood vessels flexible?
Yeah.
Proteins,
Protein.
right? Those elastic like proteins. And so when they become damaged, now your blood vessels become stiff. Stiff blood vessels, they're not
Yeah.
responding to, the
That's good.
pumping action of the heart, because your blood vessels are supposed to be, be able to move. I'm kind of doing this, maybe not that much.
Whoop, whoop,
Right, but they need to be able to be dynamic and
Yeah.
respond to the changes in blood pressure. And stiff blood vessels are end up being injured blood vessels, which then leads to plaque formation.
Yeah. There's also a link not just to that kind of damage, the structural damage to the artery. It seems that ages, those end products of glycation, also can increase an atherogenic protein called apolipoprotein B. Correct. So that's kind of falls into the family of LDL, if you will, right? That we don't want those kind of things, and it turns out glycation can raise those types of atherogenic proteins in your body. So it's kind of like a double whammy. You got these proteins that can cause atherosclerosis going up, and then you got the damage
Yeah.
that's there. And so the arteries take a big hit. As a matter of fact, diabetics, it's a shame, but they get early plaque, they get early heart disease. We call it accelerated atherosclerosis, and glycation and ages are believed to be a major part of that.
Right,
Uh,
Dr. Mike, and I'm happy you brought that up, because I think the point when we're talking about your sugar age, right? A lot of these diseases, osteoarthritis, atherosclerosis, these are kind of considered age-related chronic diseases, where the older you get, the more likely these diseases are you'll see them appearing and becoming a problem. And so now we're getting down to some of the root causes. What's
right.
behind these age related conditions? And you're seeing sugar is right there as being a part of that pathology.
Yeah, and it allows some of these things to develop maybe a little bit earlier, right? If you're in your 80s and you develop some atherosclerosis, well, I mean, that might just be normal glycation process, not accelerated,
Right.
whatever. But if you're in your 40s and 50s I mean, that's where you got to think about sugar age and what am I consuming?
Yes.
What am I bringing into my system that's advancing these chronic age-related
Right. I
diseases?
like that word you mentioned. I think you said it, or maybe I heard it in my head. accelerated
I said it.
aging. Yeah, okay, you did say that. Yes, accelerating that aging process. And that brings up the concept. This is sort of a quick side note, but there's a difference between your chronological age and your biological age.
Yeah.
And so now the new trend, 50's the new 40 or 40's the new 50, whatever the case may
Get it
be. But
right.
people now, we do know there is a difference in groups of people that are limiting their sugar and they're physically active. They are not their chronological
Very
age.
good. Yeah, yeah. Many of them are, 8, 10, 12 years younger than
Younger.
what their chronological age shows. And controlling glycation is part of that. Controlling sugar, insulin plays a role, controlling the glycation process, all of that can make a major impact on your age, biological age. How about cataracts? People don't think. Have you ever? I mean, that's an interesting. Run cataracts itself, that film over the lens, most of that is glycation. So that's another sign. If you're a little on the younger side developing some cataracts, think about that. What's my sugar age? Am I living in an accelerated glycation
Mm-hmm.
state? You mentioned the wrinkles. I mean, I got some around here. I'm like glycation, right? I mean, it's happening. What are you
Right,
gonna
and
do?
that's just one of the many processes related to wrinkles. I don't
Of
want you to
course.
think that it's all glycation, but the beauty creams are not going to be a substitute for a healthy plate.
Hey, oh, great point, right? You could do all the creams and stuff you want, and they may help, but if you're in a high level of glycation, you're just making it an uphill battle, right?
That's right.
Bring down that sugar, bring down that glycation, and now some of those
Mhm.
products, which can be very expensive, have a chance to
Many of
maybe work.
them.
Yeah, have a chance to maybe work a little bit better. Even reduce muscle function. That's been shown when ages are formed in the body, muscle function itself, and not just your skeletal muscle, even cardiovascular muscle.
Mhm.
Kidneys take a big hit with glycation. There's a lot of research looking at protecting the kidney in people that have sugar issues, mainly because they have accelerated glycation going on. So that's a big one. And then
Mhm.
this last one, I'm not. This one's harder for me to piece together. But
Yes.
sleep apnea. What do you
Right.
think's going
So
on there?
yeah, a study found, and I'll just read from some of my notes. A study found an increase in serum AGEs, or those advanced glycation end products, in non diabetic men and women with obstructive sleep apnea in comparison with a control group. Increased AGEs levels were associated with greater obstructive
Hmm.
sleep apnea severity. So it's something to consider if you're dealing with sleep apnea. And we talked about this, Dr. Mike. Did the sleep
Yeah,
apnea come first,
yeah.
or
Chicken or the
did
egg thing,
the
right? Yeah.
did the
Not sure.
glycation end products come first? But either way, if you're wanting to kind of jump in there and target your sleep apnea along with wearing your CPAP,
Right.
control your blood
Maybe
sugar.
that can help them more, right? For sure. So those are 7 signs of glycation in your body. Again, a lot of the things we're mentioning are age related.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're seeing some of this stuff in younger people, younger generations, maybe some of this stuff is happening in the 40s and 50s versus 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we have to think about sugar, excessive sugar, accelerated glycation, accelerated aging at the end of the day.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Crystal is a
Really quick,
nutritionist.
Dr. Mike.
Okay.
Let's pause real quick just to recognize the chat. I do see a couple of people. Tiffany Butler, she's giving us thumbs up. Hi, Tiffany. Thanks for watching. I guess you like this information. Hopefully, it's informative. Daryl Lott, that's my uncle. My cousin Lanitha, who was on last week, she's back. Thank you so much for the support. I love you all. And send us your questions if you have any questions about blood sugar, glycation, biological age versus chronological age. Send them
Yeah,
in the chat. We'll love
that'd
to
be great.
answer those questions.
What I was about to say is Dr. Crystal is a doctor of clinical nutrition, and we always like food first, right? Food.
Right.
I mean, like you said, a healthy plate can go a long way. So what are some of the healthier foods that you would recommend that maybe play a role in bringing down the ages, bringing down glycation?
Yeah, so I would like to start with non starchy carbohydrates, right? All carbs aren't bad carbs. So, non starchy carbs, those are going to be uh, your fiber, of course, foods with fiber, bran. The oatmeal is even good. Foods that's going to have a higher amount of fiber. Your fruit with the skin, so that's the apple with the skin,
Yeah.
your peaches with the skin. Leave that skin on. Even leave the skin on your carrots. Sometimes we peel the carrots, the cucumbers, those outer coverings. That's where you're going to find the fiber. So even foods that may have more sugar, when you add in the fiber, that fiber slows the absorption of that sugar. If you're slowing the absorption of the sugar, as the sugar enters into the bloodstream, your body's able to use the sugar. We're able to kind of burn that sugar so it's not floating around looking for
Right.
proteins to bind to in order, so you're kind of stopping that glycation reaction or slowing it down, as Dr. Mike mentioned, by adding in high fiber foods.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? I mean, it often does come back to, more fruits and vegetables at the end of the day. Of course, now we're
Right.
talking about the leafy green vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, those types of things, staying away from the starchy one. But listen, people may be sick of it, but we need to eat more veggies. We need to eat more. I mean,
We
that's what it comes down
That's
to.
right. And so if you find that you're not doing it, then that's where I am a big proponent of a fiber supplement. The fiber powders are great. If you want to have pancakes, waffles, French toast for breakfast, you know what you need to do? Have a little bit of fiber
Yeah,
before you eat that meal or even after. The fiber needs to be incorporated into
right.
that meal, and that really helps to control that glycation process.
Yeah, yeah, it just kind of helps to slow it down, absorb some of that sugar. So for sure, I mean, you are the fiber queen. I mean, you're it for us. You know everything about it, and rightfully you talk about it a lot. So there are some foods. Now there are some supplements that can help too. So you got your food first. Focus on what Dr. Crystal just said, but then there are some supplements that play a pretty cool role. Now let me just name what these are first.
Okay.
Okay, we have, and there you can see a chart up there. The one in the middle is a form of B1, benfotiamine or benfotiamine, however you want to say it. Carnosine is a small little protein, and then a form of B6 known as pyridoxal 5 phosphate. Those are the three. I mean, what do we want to call it? The three heavy hitters, if you will,
Yes.
right? For helping
Yes.
us manage the glycation process. And
Mhm.
and when you think about it, now I'll let you kind of describe it, Dr. Crystal. Run us through how you picture it in your head. How there's kind of like the beginning of glycation, middle of glycation, the end point. How are these things influencing that whole pathway?
Yeah, so we see carnosine. Remember, you got the sugar and the protein bound together. Carnosine can help to release that or disaggregate glycated proteins. So we know it's going to happen, right? You can't stop it completely because you have to eat, and we do know that sugar can provide or nutrients for the muscles. That's how your muscles work and function. You just don't want lots of them.
Right.
The carnosine also helps to inhibit the formation of those AGEs. So that's kind of step one with your carnosine. Number two,
Can we
benfotiamine. Oh,
can we call carnosine kind of? I know I said this when we were going over this, and you just looked at me funny, but I like carnosine and think of it as kind of like it sacrifices itself, right? Doesn't it also absorb some of that sugar so it's not going on to your body protein?
right. So, Dr. Mike, that's something that how I've thought about carnosine, how I've always referred to it as a martyr, right?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing as much research with that particular mechanism of action anymore. It seems like the research is shifting to where it's kind of helping with the disassociation of
Okay.
those those glycated proteins.
Okay. We can't say sacrificer or martyr anymore. Dr. Crystal just ruined it for us.
Well, it's a cool, interesting concept. I'm just not finding any current
Yeah,
research.
it was a concept around and very popular for a long time, but that's
Yes.
kind of how All right, let's go to the next one, the B1.
Yeah, so B1, vitamin B1. So it's one of your B vitamins, but this is a fat soluble form of that B vitamin, and it's better absorbed into the body in this fat soluble form. And we know that this also inhibits glycation. It helps to control blood sugar levels, blocks the AGE formation pathway. So
Yeah.
we like to add in vitamin B1 in the form of benfotiamine for that purpose. And then we can move over to P5P, is how we call it for short. It is the active form of vitamin
Right.
B6. So the form of vitamin B6, or when you have B6 in your food, fruit and vegetables, you're getting that beneficial vitamin. Once it's inside the body, that vitamin starts turning into the active versions
Right.
that's having the activity in the body. And so we can see in research supplementing with the active form, P5P inhibits the glycation process of proteins and fats. Because remember, we've been
That's
only
true.
focusing
Yeah.
in on sugar, protein. But now what happens when your fats, LDL, becomes glycated?
Not
That
good.
LDL part, and this is, LDL or HDL, these are these transporters of fats throughout the body. If that LDL particle becomes glycated, do you know what happens? That LDL now has trouble dropping off its fat into the cell. So now you have more LDLs floating around in the bloodstream, more likely for those LDLs to contribute to plaque formation.
Yeah.
So again,
Awesome.
the glycations reaction can occur on proteins and fats. P5P or vitamin B6 can help with both of those reactions in the body.
Yeah, and the P5P, lots of evidence that it's very good for the kidneys. All right. So that's
Yes.
something that I know a lot of even pharmaceutical companies are looking at, how
Mm-hmm.
powerful it can be. Hey, here is
And
an SE. Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. And one thing really quick I wanted to mention, these advanced glycation end products, this glycation process is happening in the body. It's also happening outside of the body. When you eat toast or the browning of toast, the browning of meats. I love grilled anything. I tell my husband, I was like, oh, why do I love glycation so much? It's like I need
Right.
my meat to be charred. Who doesn't like a good charred grass fed steak?
Mm-mm-mm.
So good, right? But that
Beef rib.
browning, foods cooked at the high temperatures, even fried foods, that process is happening outside of the food. So we are eating these
These
glycation
meat. Yeah.
end products. And when we eat those glycation end products, that's really where the nutrients come to play. The P5P in particular, to help to trap some of those glycation end products that we're consuming through our diet.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent point. You do have to be careful how you cook. I hate to say it. You got to limit the grilling. You got to limit the barbecue. I love that stuff too. Come on. I'm from Texas. With
I
beef
know. So let
rib,
me give you all a
brisket.
trick,
Mm, mm,
a
mm,
tip.
mm.
Anytime we grill, I tell my husband, okay, we have to have some greens. I need broccoli. Give me some
There you go.
onions. Give me some asparagus, because those foods can help to offset some of the inflammatory processes that's taking
Right.
place from your grilled
Right.
burger.
Excellent, excellent information. The last question we can briefly cover because it's a question people ask on Google can glycation be reversed? Again, it's a natural process. It's going to happen in everybody. I don't think reverse is the right word. I think more, can glycation be slowed? Can we slow
Yes,
down the acceleration? Can we manage that? Those are better words, and all of that I believe are true. Right? What do you think?
that's right. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Reverse is kind of a weird word there. So hopefully, hey, maybe you're now thinking about your sugar age. Do you have some of those 7 signs of glycation? Maybe go, if you've never had it done, go get your hemoglobin A1C checked. Gives you an indication of where you might be in terms of your sugar age and the level of glycation you're going through. So you might want to check that out. Food first, right? We got to get more
Yes.
fiber, the non-starchy vegetables, some fruits. Don't forget about those. And then, of course, the supplements we covered have good research behind them to help you bring down that sugar age. So we have another. Is it? I think it's a blog article at lifeextension.com/wellness, right? And there they can find a whole bunch there. There's a whole bunch on sugar and glycation and all that kind of stuff. You can find it at lifeextension.com/wellness. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Crystal. Great information. Very, very important at the end of the day, right? This is important stuff. Don't forget, we go live every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time. Join us, like, comment, share. Everybody that's watching right now, share that with your friends. Get more people involved in watching Life Extension live again Wednesday, noon Eastern Time. I'm Dr. Mike. Thanks for watching.